these kids in this neighborhood.
We are talking The Church. This one is written and directed by Dom Frank and stars Bill Moseley and has an appearance by Clint Howard, of course, brother of Ron Howard. So, not unsurprisingly, this movie focuses on, well, this particular church. It's an older church in the States and it's rather run down and kind of in need of constant repairs. And we have the pastor of this church, played by Bill Moseley, and you know he's having to kind of constantly try and kind of fix things because this kind of like is obviously kind of just seeing better days. And he has this congregation there, all of whom have been there for a very long time and kind of see this as the kind of like the spiritual hub of their community. But then there is this kind of property developer who wants to buy this property and to kind of redevelop it ultimately. Now the pastor, played by Bill Moseley, is initially reluctant to do this. But he's kind of persuaded through various kind of financial means to do so, to this kind of like host the idea. So they kind of like, he provisionally agrees, but they kind of come together in this meeting. So we have these kind of two groups of people, one kind of like the church pastor, kind of some of the kind of the upper echelons of the kind of congregation, along with the property developer and a few kind of his people as well. You know, so we've got kind of 10 or 12 people meeting in this kind of particular church. And then there seems to be some type of supernatural force emanating from the actual church itself, it seems, that seems to want to punish anyone that it deems unworthy and sinful and kind of transports them away into a kind of purgatory type dimension where they can face a rather painful demise. So let's talk of the church. So what is the positives with this movie? So, first of all, I want to talk about a couple of characters. First of all, Bill Moseley, I actually think he plays kind of religious characters, like priests and kind of pastors like this, really well, which is kind of ironic considering he's really a horror actor per se. But I just think he comes across as very natural in these kind of like priest roles. I've seen him in a couple, and I just think he absolutely nails it and kind of really kind of sells the, a down-to-earth kind of priest, like who has a real kind of human connection with his kind of like with his peers and stuff, but also a man of God. I think he plays it very, very well. I also like this other character, this Romanian guy, and he's kind of like the finance man from the kind of the property developer side. And you know, normally when you see kind of like property developers and in films, they're always tended to be kind of like evil, greedy, kind of like bad guys ultimately, and kind of like self-centered and things like this. But I actually thought his character just seemed very kind of fair. He's just a businessman. He's not trying to kind of stitch everyone up for evil means. He's just doing his job. And he actually has maybe a little bit of an insight because, he's Romanian, therefore he must be spiritual about what maybe is going on. But I actually just quite liked his character, and I actually thought he was fairly kind of like subtly kind of drawn out here. And then the other thing I would say is, and I don't say this with many films, but this is one of those films where it's so bad it's actually kind of good. Well, maybe not good, but fun. There's a better kind of like description of it. Because this movie goes into some really silly territories, but I can't help but thinking this was actually some cheesy fun here. And don't get me wrong, this is some cheesy, full-on kind of Stilton fun here, but nonetheless, I still kind of enjoyed it. The story is kind of fairly self-contained, easy to kind of follow. There's quite a lot of characters have kind of a variety of things done to them. But it's ultimately it's very, very silly, but it's kind of fun at the same time. I don't say that about many films. Normally a crappy film to me is just a crappy film, but this is one of those rare films to me that is very crappy, but at the same time is fairly enjoyable because of its cheesiness. But let's talk some negatives. So the reality is here, this is a very low budget movie and it is incredibly cheap looking. The effects here, when you first see our kind of first effects reveal, so to speak, looks incredibly bad. So they use some sort of visual effects, some rudimentary CGI really, and kind of visual tricks and stuff like that. But it's so incredibly shoddy. it's kind of funny, like I've said, but it is kind of crappy. It's very crappy. The actual, when we get as the story goes along, we see more and more of these kind of like, these effects. And then we kind of see Clint Howard's character, and it is laughable. It is so hilariously bad. It is hilariously bad. He is ultimately the kind of, he plays this, this spirit, I guess, the spirit of the church, maybe of this long dead, priest or something. But my God, it is so hilariously bad. You know, it is proper Plan 9 from outer space stuff. Yeah, but I mean, even though it is fun, it is really crap. I mean, just the kind of like the over-the-top kind of hammy acting, the really crappy effects, it isn't good. And then I've got to say, the rest of the cast here are very kind of, it doesn't seem like they're actual actors by profession. Let me put it like that. So I liked Bill Moseley. I like the kind of, even though I didn't think he was amazingly acted, I like the character of this kind of Romanian property developer. But there are a lot of other characters here who just do not seem like they're actually actors by trade. They're just kind of people who are pulled in, who maybe have done a little bit of local theatre work or something. But there's just very, very hammy acting. Doesn't help, I think, a lot of the lines are ADR'd, so again, you get that kind of artificial kind of feel to it. And then I've got to say, when you sit and think about it, and you sit and think about the actual, the reasonings, I mean, the reasonings about what's going on, you just think, I don't really get why that happened. I mean, it just seems to come out of nowhere, this kind of supernatural force, and for no real particular reason. I don't think it's really kind of explained, you just got to accept that it's there. I did kind of quite like the fact that we don't really get an explanation about what it actually is, whether it's like divine kind of like judgment or it's something more satanic that some of the kind of the artwork here suggests. But you don't really know, and in a way I kind of quite like that. But even regardless of whatever it is, I have to question the motivations, because it just doesn't seem particularly kind of easy to understand in that respect. So I've got to say, really looking at it objectively, this is not a good film. You know, this is just a very, very cheaply made, cheesy B-movie. But it does have an element of fun if you can appreciate that sort of thing. So I will give it a 4 out of 10, but I do think there is some enjoyment to be had if you like that kind of that B-movie schlocky film. Anyway, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.